No intro, but this is I Quit My Job, where ordinary stories lead to extraordinary inspirations. So, Lorraine, I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you reaching out. I mean, this is really cool. Like, you know, the big city of Toronto is really a small city, you know, and now look at us right now. Like,
We're both in our chosen elements.
exactly. So, as you know, this is all about I Quit My Job. First, you know, tell the people who you are and
So I'm Lorraine Telesport, owner of On Track Accounting Solutions, Inc. And that's something that it's minted as of 2018. The major one is I provide fractional CFO services. So from bookkeeping all the way up, there's many stages in between. I've been in this for 35 years now. My goal is to help as many businesses as I can throughout my life.
Right.
And being a fractional CFO is the best way to do it. That's where I'm at now. This year, I'm also going to see my goal grow. Let's say, On Track Accounting Solutions, right? On Track, I know about, and we'll talk about where that came from. But
Right.
I was literally sitting down trying to think of a business name, and back then I was into track. So track and basketball are probably the two sports I've ever taken the furthest. So the OT is On Track, that we know. The logo is a runner. So the services is something I'll always offer.
Right.
The vision was to have ABCDs of On Track. So I started with the B, which is On Track Bookkeeping Services. Then I moved to the A, which is where I'm at now, which is On Track Accounting Solutions.
Okay.
Somewhere in there, around 2008 to 2012, 13, I was teaching at George Brown. I was teaching developing a small business and all the courses underneath the Small Business Certificate program.
Right.
So then I would say that I developed the C, which is On Track Coaching or Consulting. The last part that I haven't really built out yet, but I will be doing this year, is the D, which is, my mind says discuss,
Right.
right? Debate, discuss, develop.
Right.
That's where I'm at now, where I'm a project manager, and we just launched a program in conjunction with Foodpreneur Lab and Corliss. I was able to bring a program together that is called Growing Investment Ready, and it's aimed at a group. We're trying to get a group of black and female-led women in the food industry.
I sent that link to a couple of my friends.
I'm glad you did.
Because a couple of my friends are into this, you know, the food sovereignty. They farm. And then one of my friends designs the living walls so that you can put all the fruits, vegetables, grow all that you need. So, yeah, so when I saw that, I wanted to ask you more about it, but I'm glad you're explaining that right now.
I'm at the end of where I'm at now. But as we start to fill in the gaps of how I got where I got now, there's some interesting juice. So growing investment readiness came out of this thing, right? So when what happened to George Floyd happened, I was in my own kind of silo, living the corporate accounting life. Corporate is different. I find when I'm doing corporate pays really well. I learn a ton that I can take back to grassroots organizations and small businesses. I get wrapped up in some very specific procedures. These are books that run pretty well like clockwork, financial statements every month. You know, you read them out, budgets to actuals, comparisons, 5-year projections, cash flow plans. It's like mint all the time, every month, same thing. Now, when you get in that cycle in the corporate world, and then all of a sudden George Floyd happens.
Right.
Okay. And now I'm remembering when I used to be treasurer on the BBPA, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, George Floyd was like, I remember saying to myself, today's a whole different day. I remember that day where it went black on Instagram. You were supposed to go black.
Yeah.
I'm not normally the hunter. I hunted on that day. I looked. I said, if your screen ain't black, I'm not even talking to you. Like, I got serious. I got militant. I was like, we can't live like this anymore. This is nuts. Because I had been a treasurer of the BBPA back in the days, it was the first organization I went and I looked at, and I looked and saw, what are they doing? I don't remember this specific order of things, but all I could tell you is in the time, 3 organizations became part of my now existence.
Right.
The BBPA again, a group called Corliss, which then was called SHEO, and a group called Tandem Innovation. All of these 3, especially BBPA had come out with what was called BAIDS, and I think that's what I saw. I saw this thing about BAIDS, which is Business Advisory and Implementation Development Services. So what I knew would happen is the way the government structured this was $400 million was going to go out in the universe and be aimed at black businesses. That was the Canadian response to what happened. Clearly, black businesses here, all the inequities, we were in the midst of DEI and that whole movement.
Right.
Then George Floyd, and everybody was like, okay, we need our businesses right-sided.
Right.
Because the government of Canada doesn't know enough black people, they don't know us like that. So what always ends up with our community is they won't even go out and poll, like they won't put in the infrastructure and the investment to find out each and every one of our individual needs.
Right.
Canada's solution to the black community, from what I've seen in Ontario, has always been, let's give them the tools to help themselves. But we are not getting involved in their stuff.
Right. Right.
So what they end up having to do is take that $400 million and give it to organizations within the black community who they assume know their community.
Well, that's typical capitalist, right? Capitalism, you just give it to the few and then they give it to the rest and everybody's on their own. Right? That's typical. That's typical. That's just a simple template. And to say if they know any better, it's hard because they're dealing with people they don't really communicate with.
Not only did I know that they would have to put this money in certain communities' hands, but the issue becomes, and right now you're going to hear a lot of complaints. People are going to complain about this, that happened, that. To me, every organization that receive funding, and that collection of organizations that receive funding is called the Black Ecosystem. And each member of it is the Black Ecosystem partner. So there's like 43, 44 of them.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting how quiet that Black ecosystem is.
So now when you culminate that, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, what was decided is, okay, 400 million would go out to our community. I'm sitting at home, I'm dealing with corporate Canada. All of a sudden that didn't seem important. It was my community that seemed important. I think I almost even grudged what I was doing, even though what I was doing pays me well.
Right.
So in trying to figure out what was going on in our community and what would I do, I realized that what we need is BAIDS to me was in its purest concept, it's one of the best programs for our community.
Nice.
What it means is that you get services wrapped around your business that your business needs and lacks. And that puts you in a position to either scale up or become sustainable. And then you can grow.
Right.
Once you're standing on a solid, good ground, then you can grow.
Exactly.
Most of our businesses are in the mud and they're slipping here and there and they're trying to grow, but you're in the mud. It's hard to grow when you're slipping. And
there's no lessons that
there's
way.
no leveling ground. There's so many ways to dissect what's happening now. Let's go back to where you're sitting on your butt. We're all sitting on our butt. George Floyd happens, and now as a business, you're looking to respond.
Right.
All of a sudden, you get a call from the government. $400 has been earmarked towards black businesses.
Right.
And
400 million.
And
right.
Now let's just say you're that person.
Right.
Prior to that day that you have been told 5 million is on the way, you were managing 50,000. Okay. So now you've got to go from being able to manage 50,000 to being able to manage 5 million. So I will say that sometimes acts of kindness and funding, they're great. The problem is if you're standing in mud and somebody gives you a suitcase with $5 million in it, there's a chance you're going to slip, you're going to fall in the suitcase, some of the money is going to drop out,
right.
Some of it going to fall, you're going to lose some of it, things are going to happen. You weren't standing on solid ground when you were given the money.
Things fall out the truck.
So we do have a number of black organizations in our community that need grace. The whole world needs grace. We need to give each other grace, but we're having a business talk now. We can't expect perfection. I'll jump to something that we can equate this to. So there's a book called Profit First. In it, when he's describing things and he's describing that, he talks about this, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get this out of my head.
Right.
Can you imagine that when we were kids in school, 1% of my class started their own business. And I'm probably that 1%. I'm not sure if anybody else in my class started a small business, but I did.
Right.
So that means that when we were in school as kids, 1% of us' role was to create jobs for the other 30-something students in the class.
Right.
Right? So think about the weight of that. In your entire school, how many people created a business? Well, what will the future be like, right? If somebody doesn't do that. So now you have a government whose job it is to protect how many million? Okay, now you're a black community. So you have 3 million Canadians or something that are black. Then you get that down to people who do business. Then you get it down to service organizations. So remember, you put money in 44 organizations' hand,
Right.
and they've got about 100 and something people to deal with.
Right.
On top of it, you kind of made it sound like free money. So that might mean that even people who didn't have it in their mind to do it are going to think, I should do it now.
Yeah, this is the opportunity.
I think that if you take somebody who doesn't currently have a business and you give them money, then you have to wrap services around them, because you're taking them from muddy ground that's slippery. You need to help them get on solid footing ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say, all right, I've been with you for 9 months now. I've been with you a year. Go fly. Now that go fly effort, they may get off the ground. They may drop.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody that's wrapped around and supported is going to be a successful business owner. So sometimes it's not lack of funding.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not lack of people hugging you. Not every person has to be a business owner. Some
Right.
people have to be the best employee they can be to make this world go round.
Right.
And some people need to create businesses so that somebody can be a best employee.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look now at what happened after George Floyd, and I'm sitting at home, I'm like, you know what? I'm blackity black again, straight up. I'm not just somebody trying to do business and live life. I think sometimes we can be the best black person we can be by just being a productive person, right? That happens to be black. But this time I said, no, I got to get out there and get in the community. So I decided I wanted to become on the board. I wanted to get on the board of one of these organizations, and I did. I'm now the president of the board of the African Caribbean Business Network.
Mm-hmm.
So my business became the accounting service provider in the BAIDS program. And there are other service providers as well, too. So I got to meet and start working with a number of businesses. But as I'm working with more and more businesses in our community, my mind keeps gravitating towards what makes a good business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do see where some people were given funding, but again, they were given funding when they were standing on mud. So, they were told what to do and they did it. But do
Right.
they understand why they're doing what they're doing and how
Right.
that will make them capacity build or a better business, right? Over the years, many years now, I know for sure I've serviced 350 something businesses, but
Right.
I counted that about a year ago.
Right.
So I don't know how many more I've helped now, especially through BAIDS and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is that every business is so unique that I think sometimes people have to redefine. One of the biggest things I would say is redefine success. You are a unique individual.
Right.
And if you're authentic and you're you, and you keep thinking about what moves you, what you like, the product that comes out of you is going to be a unique offering.
Right.
And because this world is filled with many people, some of which think the way you do, feel the way you do, want what you do, you now have created a solution for them.
Mm-hmm.
However, let's say you go to a business school, Wharton or something.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you, me, and another person, we all go to business school. The business school is going to tell us, you want a business that does this, you want a business that makes that,
Right.
Our offering isn't going to be as unique after we come out of Wharton.
Of course.
Because we're going to be tainted and changed a little bit. And
Right.
we're all going to kind of gravitate towards producing something that's revenue
Right.
generating,
Value.
not necessarily solution producing.
Right.
I believe my business to be solution producing. So from day one, I've always offered advisory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I realized in the last 3 years people need with business. They need advice.
Mm-hmm.
They need somebody to say to them, here's 7 things you should consider.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why you should consider these things.
Right.
Give me your hand. Let me hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I believe in you. Make a choice.
Right.
No, but tell me I can't tell you what to do because then your offering won't be a unique offering.
Right.
But what I can tell you is everything you ought to know and think about. You want a point of sale? Okay. Are your customers coming on site?
Mm-hmm.
Is your point of sale going to be left at a store at nighttime because they're stealing those now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to pay the fees? Mm-hmm. There's so many crucial things they don't teach you in school that you have to assume that what you're taught is for a reason, and what you're taught produces doctor, lawyer, engineer, this and that. We've got to look at the lines in between those roles now and start to fill those gaps.
That's the new future.
And I try and provide the advisory that'll allow people to do that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I choose to live outside the corporate game. I started my business in 1999.
So just before, back up a bit. So you started your business in 1999. In 2020, you're doing all the corporate working. So what was that feeling when you said, all right, I'm leaving, and then you kind of gave us that amazing story of you jumping into now you're going to bring your Blackness forward and find ways to better solutions, not even ways, find solutions that can help them based on the skill set that you have.
And I'm going to preface everything I'm going to say by when I first started business, I started business to make money.
Yes.
Okay. So nowadays you can start business to make money for a social reason. And that's why you call it social enterprise, a for-profit business with a social intent to make the world better. Mm-hmm. I started a business with a Lorraine enterprise in mind. I started my business to make Lorraine financially better. Right. And that was in 1999.
And that's the way to go, though.
So what happened in 1999 is two things. First and foremost, I think I got my first job when I was, my first job was with Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. And when I say first job, I mean something that I'd be hired to do.
Right.
But my first interaction with money and making my own money, I think I've been making my own money since I was either 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And what usually propels me to do anything is when I hear no, when I want something and I hear a no. So I must have went to my dad for a phone. I wanted my own phone in my room because my mom was just a slight bit of a phoneaholic. Right? She'd come home from work. She was in nursing. Right. And she'd chat the day with her friends. So I couldn't get the phone. My father looked at me and said, "Why don't you get a job?" And I sat there and I said, "For real, why don't I get a job?" And so I got this job with Parks and Rec. So now from this first job, take it to 1999. I'm in accounting. I'm working in accounting firms. Okay. So when I compare, what I had to laugh is when you compare your paycheck of being self-employed, right, to the paycheck of working at Parks and Rec. So while I'm working at Parks and Rec, Christmas time would come. And one of my first entrepreneurship endeavors was wrapping Christmas gifts in my building.
Right. Oh, sick.
So I just went to my building and asked for a table downstairs, and I would just sit downstairs with a sign that said, I wrap gifts. And I didn't just wrap gifts. Mm-hmm. I mean, I made a gift look pretty. Oh, nice. I was one of them people that take the scissors and go sew with the ribbon and make all these little designs and stuff. So
I wish I knew you because my wrapping sucks.
So everybody used to come to me to get. Okay. So now by the time we get to 1999 now, and I'm working, because again, I have Black parents, and telling a Black parent that you're self-employed is kind of the same thing as saying you don't work nowhere. All right, great. So here's what happened. We get to now, we're at work. One of the last CA firms I worked at, swearing and cussing was a daily ritual. Mm-hmm. These owners would have a file, they'd forget about it, then they'd drop it on your desk, swearing and cursing, and now you've got limited amount of hours to get this thing done. Mm-hmm. On top of it, when you get thrown into a CA firm, nobody holds your hand. Right? So I happen to come from where I've never actually had wraparound support. Okay, so now I've got to decide, I'm in this firm, and again, you have to make yourself somebody in a firm, or else you're just nobody pushing paper. Right. So here I was now asking people beside me and around me. I'm trying to figure out who's who assigns work. How can I get work to me so I can prove myself, so I can start to move up? Because this is my mind of what happens in a company. But all I know is I don't like the bottom ladder job. Right. So I'm at this firm, and my day came when I wanted vacation. I had a very active social life. You know us. Toronto, us, young, our social lives were kicking. And here I am in a workplace, bored to death. I didn't live for work. I didn't live for a title. I live for nightlife. I want to get out of work. I got to get my outfit, everything. I got to go to Wayne Warner. That was my life.
Shout out to Mr. Warner.
Work was just work. So you're in a firm. Nobody's really helping you. But you've got to figure out how to make a name for yourself so you can become a CSA. So what ended up happening to me is these books would be dropped off. They'd be late. The quality of the books aren't great. So now the firm is sending me out to do bookkeeping because I was very detail oriented and specific. So now I'm going out and I'm actually meeting the owners. And I guess I have a way to me, maybe from all our active social life, but I know how to talk to people, make them feel comfortable. Right. And then accounting is a complex topic. So if I'm going to talk about accounting to somebody in wrestling, that means I have to know a bit about wrestling. That's what I've learned. Right. Because I'm going to take accounting and I'm going to equate it to wrestling so that you can digest it the way you need it to be able to digest it. Right. Because if I talk to you like an accountant, I'm missing the mark because you're not an accountant, you're a wrestler. Mm. So I've had to do this for everybody in their chosen fields. It's trying to equate it to what you know. So that being said, I got requested. I guess businesses like that. And that became my key feature within this accounting firm. That kind of means I'm not going the way of an accountant. I'm going the way of a bookkeeper. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I put in for a vacation request on a weekend that was a long weekend. Sick or not sick, we know that back in the day, it was all about a drive to New York on a long weekend for me anyway. Long weekend come, I want out of town. I'm heading to. When I asked for a day off, I don't have to tell you why I want the day off. I want the day off. Mm-hmm. But something happened to me. I took a day off, and the day before the day off, I legitimately got sick at this company. Mm-hmm. So sick, I actually had to go to the doctor. And because I'm at the doctor and I know I miss work, I got a doctor's note. So I called in sick. Mm-hmm. I have my doctor's note. The next day, I'm on vacation. Mm-hmm. And then Tuesday, I'm back in the office. When I came back in the office Tuesday, somebody standing over my desk like this, mm-hmm. talking about, where were you last Thursday? I said, how could you ask me where I was last Thursday? You have a doctor's note for where I was last Thursday. Right. Were you really at the doctor? I said, well, how did I really get a doctor's note if I wasn't really at the doctor? Right. So to make a long story short, what had actually happened is when I came back the Monday, my paycheck was ready for me and my paycheck was short. So what had happened is she made the argument with the bosses that I wasn't really sick, that I took an extra day off because I was going to the States anyways. Right. And therefore I should be docked that day pay. So she worked all that out, mm-hmm. did my paycheck and gave it to me. And when I saw it, I went marching into her office. Right. Other than my pay, as I told you, I went into business to make money. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing could get me march into somebody's office because the rest of the nonsense, I don't care. I'm going to Wayne Warders party later. I don't business with you guys in your internal drama. March in her office and she matches me drama for drama. You know, she's telling me what I did, what I didn't do, whatever. I said, you know what? You need to sort this out. And when I get back from lunch, could you please have my paycheck corrected? And I give her the whole entire check. Mm-hmm. As I'm out for lunch, my phone rings and it's my doctor. You know, my doctor asked me, what kind of place do you work for? Calling them. They called them. The lady, and I'm talking about, it wasn't no rinky-dinky little place. This is a big professional. And this woman is calling my doctor to find out not only if I was sick, because my doctor told her, yes, I was. You know, she's going to ask my doctor, what was she sick with? So I'm trying to have my lunch, and this is what I hear. So we're leading up to my how I quit my job moment, obviously, right? Now, one thing I don't do is let people get me off my game plan, so that wasn't quit day. By the time I got back, my paycheck wasn't ready. Right. I cut her off mid-sentence, and I went straight to the partner, her boss. Mm-hmm. I told him the situation. I told him they had about an hour to fix my paycheck. I went for another break. He called me on my break and said, Lorraine, come back. Your paycheck's ready. I was like, okay, cool. So that was my, you need to quit this job day. What I did now was I friended up somebody because I don't let people thwart me off my plan. Quitting then would have hurt me more than it hurt them. They would just insert someone else. Mm-hmm. I realized I needed to start my own business so I could do what they were doing better. So I wasn't going to be an auditor, but I was going to be the best darn bookkeeper. Right. And I was going to do it with advisory too, so that by the time people's books hit the accounting firm, because now I knew what accounting firms are looking for. Mm-hmm. So I was going to make sure that by the time people's books hit accounting firms, they get the smallest accounting firm bill they could possibly get, because I'm going to make sure their books are perfect for that accountant, so that accountant only has barely anything left to do. That became my mission. That became my reason. Right. Now I need a client. So what do I need? I need a disgruntled employee high up in the company that I'm in. I need to tell them my plan, make them my confidant, and see if they can help me. Mm-hmm. I did such thing. I knew exactly who to go to. Wow. I went to that person, and they gave me my first client. Mm-hmm. And so from there, literally, my first client was in Cambridge, Ontario at a time when there was barely any 407, and I didn't drive. Mm-hmm. But we found a way. I would take the bus. The client would meet me at such a place. They drive me out there, and then that was then from that client was another. So my quit my job day was about 2 weeks after they screwed. I got one more paycheck from them, and then a week's paycheck in the mail. So it was about 3 weeks. Then I survived after that incident happened. What was that like when you realized in that moment, like, shit, I left this accounting job based on the reasons you did, but how did that started to affect you? And when that person gave me a client, more came. I made myself a promise that I wouldn't leave my day job until everything else I was doing matched the income of the day job. Oh, nice. Right? Because I told you I don't let anything mess with the money. That's a good foresight. Right? Oh, my goodness. And that was how it lasted. At some point, and I didn't realize it at first. Mm-hmm. It was one day when I looked in the bank, something I realized that I had doubled my income. And it was because I was making exactly as much in my side hustle as my day hustle was making.
Wow.
That's when I quit my job.
Wow.
And how did it feel when I realized I was making that?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you, but there was such a sense of freedom for about a month. Because I'll tell you, to me, self-employed just means having more bosses.
Right, right.
But there was a sense of exhilaration, freedom, accomplishment. Although my mother cried, she thought that meant I was unemployed. I told her I was self-employed.
Right.
That meant I was unemployed.
Wow.
But then it took about a year until the benefits of being self-employed started to kick in towards my mom. Because now I'm taking her out to dinner.
Okay.
We're going to events. I used to buy her clothes and things. So I'm shopping at Melanie Lynn now. I remember the first time I bought a suit on Hazelton Lanes. I bought a Boss suit because they said you should wear navy blue.
Right.
I took all the money I had and bought this dress with a suit jacket because it was navy blue. And for years, that was I used to call that my money suit.
So what were some of the lessons that said, hey, I'm on the right path?
I don't know that I do things that way because I've been charting my own course for a long time. Right? I'm very headstrong. I tell myself I want to do something. And the minute I tell myself I want to do something, I find a way to succeed in that thing I want to do.
Right.
So at this point, I told myself I want to have my own business.
Right.
That means I'm going to succeed in that.
Okay.
So I have to figure it out.
Okay.
So what I know for sure I started to do is I started to go to school in the evening. Like right now, I have about 11 or 12 different diplomas and certificates. And the more I would take school and then go back and apply it to my clients, like creating my own logo, creating my own back time fax. We used to use fax.
Right.
So I'd have a fax cover sheet. I remember creating my own logo, creating my own fax cover sheet.
Right.
It was 7 years after 1999 that I actually got a website and business cards. So I operated on referrals and word of mouth and applying for bookkeeping jobs that I would see that were like 2 days here, 3 days a week.
Right.
I survived on that for 8 years. And it was just sheer determination. 2 things, and maybe 3. I told myself one day I was going to move out of my parents' house. And if I ever moved out, I was never going back. Right. So I've got that in my head. Once I became self-employed, I was never going to go back and take a job for anybody. I had that in the back of my head. By the time I was 35, I wanted to be driving a BMW. I had that in my head. So that's how I made it.
Oh, nice.
I made it because I'm determined to not fail once I make up my mind to do something.
I mean, what are some of the gems you could share in that moment?
I would tell everybody the space between here and here, you got to master it. Forget the outside distraction and noise and nonsense. If you can be confident, believing, knowing, humble, like whatever characteristics, if you can develop them within this vessel of yours, then you have to have faith. So the other thing I believe in too is tools and a toolkit.
Right.
Each of us needs some tools in a toolkit. Once you develop the inner confidence to tell yourself, I can do it, because that's all it is.
Right.
The people who are doing it have the confidence to do it. And the people who aren't doing it are going like this with their toe in the water still. Right. So as you start to tell yourself, you know what, I can do this, then you've got to see it and vision it and create a pathway to it. Right. So the pathway to it might be taking some courses.
Right.
The pathway to it might be finding somebody else who's already there and saying, hey, can I be your apprentice for a couple of weeks so I can learn? My intention is to start a business and I'd like to watch you, shadow you do it. The goal to me is to not be tethered to doing it the way somebody else tells you to do it. To me, it's all about courage.
Right.
You've got to believe in yourself enough to believe that when you put it to fruition, you'll figure it out as you move along the way. You're not going to get it right the first time. It's not going to be perfect the first time.
Right.
But do you believe in yourself and do you have faith?
Right.
And if you believe if you can make it to being an adult, you can make it to being a business owner.
Right.
Right? You figure it out along the way.
Right. Okay. Okay. So saying all of that, which I noticed from your examples are lived experiences. So a lot of the things that you speak about and how you got to that, you're speaking from a lived experience. So during those times, any of the lived experiences that you've been through, has that like helped your trajectory in your accounting field? And can you share one of those moments?
I feel like my whole life is lived experience, honestly. God rest her soul. And it's funny because I don't think I've ever mentioned her name in an interview. But Tora Beer gave me an opportunity I'll never forget.
Oh,
God
sick.
rest her soul. And that was Tora Beer did the account. She did the promotion. She did the marketing and promotion for the Steve Nash Charity Classic when it came here to Toronto. So at that
My
time,
buddies who run that stuff.
I was a treasurer on the board of the Urban Music Association of Canada, which is UMAC. So all these people I've come back to eventually work for. So this experience that I got when Toa pulled me into that project, I got to be the accountant for the Steve Nash Charity Classic. So we had this big meeting after it was done, and I had to discuss the financials of the event. The meeting took place in the boardroom of the Air Canada Center. And it was one of those kind of room full of men in suits kind of thing, and Toa and myself, and here I am reading the financials. And at one point I looked, and they were like you know when you could tell you got everybody right step in step with you? And one of my beautiful things, sometimes you think it's a bad thing, but I said, okay, any questions? And I was in my zone. When I really get into financials and stuff, I'm in my zone. And the whole room was like,
you knocked it out.
Best financial president. I was like, oh, cool.
That's so sick.
So that was one of those, I was midway through my career, but, and so these moments where I get drawn in to work with the community is where I really learn. And like I say, for every industry, so I have a certificate in volunteer and fundraising management because the first 7 years of my business, I basically did accounting for non-for-profits and charities. Okay. And that has to be done a certain way. So you have to understand that. Right. And then if you get the certificate, now you understand how the workers and the agency works.
What's the goal of On Track Accounting Solutions? What is the goal? What is the goal of that?
On Track Accounting Solutions definitely is about to branch out and start a whole entire bookkeeping company. I particularly owe it to my community to create a business that employs Black people, and that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, wow.
So I'm on the hunt for Black bookkeepers. So On Track Bookkeeping Services will be reborn again, but it'll be incorporated now. Before it was self-employed, and it was me. To me, I'm just a business guru, and what I feel I'm at now, I'm 50 now. I'm not hustling or chasing anymore. Right. I want to start planting trees that I'll never get to sit under the shade of. Right. I want to make a difference. Wow. And then lastly, I'm starting to train bookkeepers and accountants. I started a partnership with a woman in Nova Scotia she's a bookkeeper out there. She wants to take her bookkeeping to the level where mine is, I guess, where you're mixing advisory and you're doing fractional CFO work. Right. So I'm working with her there to do that. And we're doing a lot of courses that will help and enrich people in cohorts. And as you know, we're doing the Growing Investment Readiness Program. That's ready to launch as of April. So I've written out the courses and the outline. Right. I'm looking for a couple speakers and workshops. And then this year will be my first year I'm doing speaking. So I'll be
public speaking
at the Just Connected conference. Yeah, it's my first paid speaking gig.
Oh, wow.
And so I'll be looking. So all four, the ABCDs, On Track Accounting Solutions, On Track Bookkeeping Services, On Track Consulting and Coaching, and On Track Discussion Series.
Wow. Wow.
Everything will be launched by the end of this year. And then we'll get into books, podcasts, and I will say that I've been able to enjoy a beautiful life by being self-employed for most of it. Right. And most of our community, we actually don't need people leading us. Right. No. If you can create big things with nothing, that's what people are employed to do in companies. They're employed to take resources and make those resources work for everybody. Wow. Most Black people already do that. We take limited resources and we make it work for everybody. Exactly. So we should be managers. Right. We should be business owners. Right. And I want to help people who want to do that in the accounting space.
Wow. That's just put it all in a nutshell. So this segment was the lived experience, was sponsored by On Track Accounting. So I can give you that, brought to you by On Track Accounting. So thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. It was amazing. So yeah, so that's it. We're signing off, and I appreciate you guys watching and taking us in.